Hugh has said like that was his hardest day he's ever had on a set shooting. It started pouring rain. We had built this entire farm in this big field. The entire thing turned into like a foot deep of mud. And there's a scene where like the torch guy, Elijah, he just wipes out. And that was not planned. That just happened because it was so muddy and miserable. And it was so hard to shoot in, but it worked so well. And everyone was just like, screw it, like stick my face in that mud. Hi, I'm Michael Sarnoski, and this is the Screenplayed Breakdown.
Hello. Today we're joined by Michael Sarnoski, the writer-director of Pig, starring Nicolas Cage, Quiet Place Day One, and A24's newest film, The Death of Robin Hood, starring Hugh Jackman, Jodie Comer, and Bill Skarsgård. Thank you for joining us today, Michael.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So first off, you've stated in other interviews that you've loved the Robin Hood mythology since you were a child. And I was wondering, when did your enjoyment of his character in this story turn into a realization that you had a story of your own to tell about him?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that sort of happened gradually over like a long period of time. I know that my fascination with the Death of Robin Hood story started when I was like 10. And that stuck with me for a long time. Like anytime I thought of Robin, I feel like everyone kind of like has their own version of Robin. They have their own stories of Robin that they're interested in. That was like the one that always kind of like jumped out at me and that I was always fascinated by. So I think for a long time, like I knew that if I were to do a story of Robin, it would be the Death of Robin Hood. I think it really wasn't until like after Pig, when I was kind of deciding what to do next and I was looking at some studio stuff and this and that like it just sort of started, it kept kind of like, I don't know, being in the back of my mind is like, ooh, like wouldn't it be fun to just take a crack at that Robin Hood story that I've always been fascinated by? And then I think it was something sort of timing wise in my life about like knowing that I was about to go on to Quiet Place and I was about to do this bigger studio thing that I was like, it's now or never. Like I gotta kind of get this out. So I really like, it was sort of like a month or two before I was going to get the Quiet Place gig and I knew that it was coming and I knew I'd have to throw myself into that I was like, you know what, I'm just going to jump in and like write a vomit pass of this Robin Hood script just so I can like get it out so I can throw it away and be like, okay, at least I did the thing. Now I can move on and do my studio movie without worrying about it. And then I wrote it and I was just like, oh, I think I have to make this. But yeah, I think it was like a long time coming. And then it was just this sort of perfect moment of like, in being offered a lot of other things that weren't generated by me, I just like needed to do that one thing that had sort of stuck with me for decades.
Yeah. And in that vomit pass, did you find anything that came out that stayed true to the final cut, that final script?
Yeah, tons of stuff. I mean, like I love writing vomit passes. It's sort of my way to like just get something out. Like I don't usually outline for that first draft. I just really want to kind of like see where the characters want to take me. And usually the vomit pass is sort of about finding the voice of the characters and finding like the way they talk and what things they lean towards. And then it's about going through and just like throwing out all the nonsense and like, you know, half the stuff is just terrible, but then like you find a chunk of stuff that like is kind of surprising and kind of like, oh, I didn't even realize this was going to be such a fascination for me. And I think like, I mean, there's a lot of stuff from that vomit pass that's still in the script. I think some of the, like the discoveries in the early vomit pass were like, I think the brutality was a discovery that like, you know, I knew that it needed to be violent because like this is an exploration of this person and his relationship to his own violence and his own stories. But like, I think like in trying to write the violence in a very visceral, personal way, I think I was a little surprised by like, oh, we're really going for this. Like, we really need to sell this. And then also like, I think the sort of like philosophical side surprised me a little bit too. That was a lot of like, as I was trying to like build out the prioress character, I did a lot of research on like Hildegard von Bingen, who was this 13th century German prioress who was this kind of incredible polymath who was like a theologian and a healer and a composer. And she wrote all these books about like herbalism and like through that I was exploring like sort of like heretical philosophy at the time. And there's a lot of references to like Lucretius and Boethius and like these sort of like older philosophers who had been like sort of suppressed by the church for a long time. And I got into this idea of like, oh, she's sort of like is seeing religion and philosophy as this timeline of all of the different truths from across time, and like that just sort of became like a real fascination in the Vomit Pass draft. But I don't know. I mean, there's so much stuff, but like a lot of stuff stuck around. But it's fun to like sort of make those discoveries of who are these characters and what is this world they're in.
That's very interesting, and I think you get a sense of that in the film when the prioress speaks about the history of the prior and the priory, when it goes back into the different layers that it's been built upon. And speaking of the development that you've had for taking this vomit draft and finding those interesting passages, was there a scene that you had to iron out a few times? Anything that you struggled to get down into its final form?
Yeah, I'm sure there were. That's a good question. It's such an organic process that like it never feels like, oh, I got to make this scene work. It's always like, as you write the script, things go kind of, I mean, even as you're editing the movie, like, oh, this scene's really working. Let's get this scene to work better. And, oh, now that scene's working better, we actually need to bolster this in certain ways. And it's always this kind of organic back and forth. So like, it rarely feels like, oh, this scene's just like dead. Like it's always like, oh no, it's just like not quite right. Why is that? And like it all is sort of this like interconnected thing. I'm trying to, I mean, I will say that like from early on, the final scene really like it kind of locked in as like what it felt like it needed to be. There were little like tweaks along the way, but like I remember kind of like, like I didn't have plans for the final scene of the movie going in. Like I knew sort of generally what I needed to get to because, we're modeling it after an old ballad. But like, I think there was something about the Vomit Pass final scene where I was like, okay, some of the details need to be sorted out here, but like, I get what we're like emotionally where we need to be for this scene. And like, it really like felt kind of locked in that way. I can't think of like one specific scene that like I really was like, oh, just banging my head against the wall. Because I think in some ways that's the thing that a Vomit Pass helps with is that like you let it sort of organically take you where it wants to go. So like if you feel like you're trying to force it into this thing or that thing, then it's like, oh, well, then let's not go in that. Like, where does it naturally want to go? So I feel like even from an early phase, like there weren't these scenes that I was like, I'm trying to do this thing and it's just like not working. It was just kind of like, well, maybe if we're trying to do that, maybe it's because like there shouldn't be some action scene later in the movie, and it should just like lean into like this sort of emotional, spiritual side of things. And so yeah, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you, but there wasn't like one scene that I remember like really like pouring over and struggling with.
Well, I think that's very interesting, and no worries about not having an answer. I think that is in itself a very interesting answer. I think a lot of writers tend to, the ones that we hopefully make this show for, tend to have ideas of things that they want to do and try to force it onto the characters. And the one thing that I've learned from hosting the show and speaking with other writers and directors is that the best thing that they've always said is letting the characters speak for themselves, just following them in that vomit draft. And if they're going off somewhere you weren't anticipating, great. Now this is where the movie goes, and you found yourself a new scene. You found new scenes and new mythology with the prioress, for example.
Yeah. No, that's another fun early discovery was like when I was initially thinking about this movie, I did not plan on having Little John have a child and any of that stuff. And then it was just she just kind of appeared like in the scene. And then it was like, oh, like, what does she think of what her dad's going through? And what does she think of like her dad being both this like God-fearing farmer, but then also suddenly she's seeing him turn into like a psychopath. And then she just kind of like unfolded from there. But yeah, I think that's so important to just sort of like not judge yourself, and like for better or worse, even if you're writing something and you're like, this is so stupid, this is not going to work, just go with it and see if something comes of it.
That's incredibly interesting. I think, especially for little Margaret, she seems to be, for me, I mean, just in describing the story, I would say it's kind of, in the vein of Leon the Professional or maybe True Grit, of an older grizzled man. And she seems
kind of lone wolf and cubby sort of thing.
Exactly. And she seems so integral. So hearing you say like, oh, you're writing a scene and suddenly there's a girl there and you're like, she wasn't supposed to be part of this, but now she's there and you got to figure out what exactly you were given to figure out what she's supposed to do.
Yeah. No, that's the fun part of it. Like I always try to write in ways that like I feel like I'm discovering something as the audience is discovering it too. And like I don't want to write something where it's like I know exactly where it's going, I know exactly what I'm trying to say. Like I want to write on like the periphery of my own understanding, my own like emotional understanding of people in the world, so that like when I make it, hopefully the audience will also feel like they're on the edge of like their own understanding of the world. And, you know, I don't want it to be some sort of like didactic thing of like, yeah, this is the story I was trying to tell and I told it. And blah. It's like, no, like, let's all go on a journey together and try and understand ourselves better.
Absolutely. And I think this film, something I've received from a lot of your films, Pig especially, is that kind of openness that the characters in the movie are what they are, but it's not, as you said, didactic. But speaking of the kind of free-flowing creativity of being in your own world, allowing yourself to write, on the opposite end of that, you also are the director, where you do have to be incredibly didactic and plan things out months in ahead. So I'm interested, with all these brutal fights and these set pieces and wonderful locations, is there a day where all that planning just went away and you had to scramble?
Yeah, I mean that's like weirdly I find prep to be the creative part of production, and then when you're actually shooting, it's like not like it's just execution. Like you just have to like get the stuff done. So like, you know, you plan as much as you can to try and make these decisions so that on the day you can try to execute them. And yeah, on the day, like it's brutal. Like it's especially like we shot this movie in 30 days. All of those action scenes, all of the scenes on the farm, which is where all the action scenes take place, were 3 days. And that was the action scenes plus all the other stuff. So it's like we had to plan the shit out of those to be able to like execute those in that time. And like, you know, it helped to be able to like have Hugh, who's just like so incredible with action, and he just like, you know, his like we do like all these stunt performance practices, and like he watches a stunt performer do the scene that we've been designing, and he's like, okay, got it. And then he just like does the whole thing, like a 5-minute action scene, and like you can see him really like feeling it and discovering it. So like it helped that he was great. But like on the day, it started pouring rain. We had built this entire farm in this big field. The entire thing turned into like a foot deep of mud, and it was, you know, everyone was like falling over. And there's a scene where like the torch guy Elijah runs up to the hut to throw a torch in, and he just wipes out. And that was not planned. That just happened because it was so muddy and miserable. And then like all the camera guys are like tripping over, and like it was like so hard to shoot in. But it like worked so well, and everyone was just like, screw it, like stick my face in that mud and let's just go for it. And so it was one of those cool moments where it's like, yes, it became a complete headache, but it was also like so great for the movie itself. And it was a fun like moment of like, I had really wanted to make sure that hut that was burning could be fully practical. And it was one of those like, oh, that's going to be so hard to do. And we spent so many hours and days and meetings figuring out how to build a hut that could burn for like 15 minutes at a time. Because that's really hard to do. You need a steady flow of gas. You need to make sure that it's not going to actually catch on fire, and then your hut's going to fully burn down. So it's like so many different departments working together. But then you get out there on the day, it starts pouring rain, and then you turn on this burning hut, and all the reflections of the fire in all the puddles and flooding that's happening suddenly feel so alive and real. And everyone's just like, thank God we like pushed ourselves to do that. This looks amazing. So it's one of those crazy ones of like, the harder it is sometimes, and like the more messed up it gets, the better it turns out. So I don't know, like, but I'm not trying to discount, like Hugh has said, like that was his hardest day he's ever had on a set shooting. So like it was brutal, but like it also just kind of you see it in the movie, so it sort of works out.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. And I think one of the strengths of this film, especially in the violence, is the fact that it has an almost theater-like quality where you're like, did that guy actually slip? Or is that, you know, choreographed? And is the fire is the rain putting out the fire? Or are they really battling the elements here for each shot? So it comes together wonderfully. And as you said, you know, the difficulties bring out some of the greatness. You know, diamonds are built under pressure, but it comes across wonderfully in the film. The reality and the true brutality of living in the 1300s.
That's great. At the end of the day, that's what we wanted. Like, we want to feel like this is what it could have felt like. Like, we want to just be with these people, because it's all about kind of humanizing them for better or worse.
And with now 3 films under your belt, I'm curious, looking back, what brought you to want to do this job? Something that's not easy, but what made you kind of pursue this passion?
Like writing and directing in general?
Yeah.
I think it was a really gradual process for me. Like I didn't go to film school. I think I had always been, I think it started by leaning into all of my various fascinations around film. Like, I loved writing. I loved writing poems and short stories, and then that sort of transitioned into screenplays. I loved special effects makeup, and I liked making my friends look like zombies and just like doing the sort of technical side of that. And then I fell in love with like editing and like visual effects, and I learned After Effects, and that ended up working out because I did most of the VFX on Pig myself, and
Oh, wow.
like leaning into like all of these little technical things that just like as a craftsperson I really enjoyed. And then it almost like eventually accumulated into like I just love making movies. Like maybe I should just be a director. And like I think for a long time like I didn't really believe that that was like a thing I could be because I'm not. You imagine some guy with a megaphone yelling at people on set, and like that just like didn't feel like me, and I didn't feel like the kind of like boss people around leader type.
Yeah.
But like I kind of came to it through like, well, I love writing and I love editing, and I really want to like execute my writing and like make it the way I want to make it, and then shape it in the edit. So it's like I should probably like be directing it too. So it was kind of this like reluctant, and I think that's why it like took me so long to get there, to kind of like build up the confidence and like belief in myself that like I was capable of it. I deserved to do it. Like all the doubts you have, the fear of failure of like I'm just gonna, I'm just gonna be some schmuck who like screws it up, and
Yeah.
there's so many things you have to kind of get over, which I think are also just like part of growing up and part of becoming like braver and understanding your own voice more and all that stuff. But it definitely took me a while, like probably longer than a lot of people, to sort of get to that place where I like believed I could do it. But I think in some ways it helped me because it was like I had to get to the place where I like had to do it, so that like it's like,
Right.
no, I need to do this thing. And so like I just better start believing in myself. And but yeah, it took a while, and like I don't think I saw it as a real possibility for a really, really long time.
And I mean, that's something I think we've come across with a variety of professionals working in the industry is the belief that there's some kind of ceiling that you need to hit sometime when you believe in yourself, or sometimes when it's all clicks and you see yourself as an actor or a writer or a director.
Yeah.
If you could, go back to your younger self at whatever that age that was, what would you tell yourself?
I mean, like in a weird way, I wouldn't want to tell myself anything. Like I think I like maybe you could see it as I wasted a lot of time and I should have believed in myself more. But like I think I kind of like needed to go through that slow process of like self understanding and self realization to get to this place. Like I think if I told myself, hey, just believe in yourself, kid. Like I think I would have been like, oh, whatever. Like I don't think I would. I think I needed to like find that through the like misery and through like struggling and through not knowing what to do and through feeling like I was a failure and like I was never gonna amount to anything. Like I think that like allowed me to like gradually sort of strip away all the expectations of what this stuff meant, and that's what Pig kind of ended up being, was like it was like a screw it moment where I was like, screw it, I'm gonna stop like trying to write stuff that like I think other people are gonna like, or I think other people are gonna give me money for. Like I'm just gonna write something that like I care about and I believe in, and like lean as hard into like what would I want this to be and what do I want to explore as possible, and stop thinking about like like, oh, this is like this movie so it'll do well and blah blah blah. Like I think like I just needed to sort of like, I don't want to say like give up hope on some level, but like be like, I need to just like, like all this stuff is not getting me anywhere. All these worries and all of this negativity is like it's not bringing me any closer to some dream. So like, let's just like stop worrying about it and just say, screw it, and do something that feels like just me. And yeah, like I think I kind of needed to get to that point. So in some ways I would tell my younger self like, yeah, you're right, you're a little piece of shit, like you should just lean into it, and then just
Yeah.
like, because you're gonna have to get through that feeling to become stronger.
And developing that kind of that attitude for Pig, and finding that story and saying, this is what just means something to me. I have to tell this. I don't, care who wants to pay for it or whatever. What was that emotion for you for this film? What was that emotional connection to a scene or a character that you just said, this is just the next one, I have to do it?
Yeah, I think I mean, because like initially when I was writing this, I was like, we don't need another Robin Hood movie. Like that would be crazy. That would be like career suicide to make a Robin Hood movie. And I think sometimes it is those moments where I'm like, this is a terrible idea, that I get most excited about it. Like on paper, like it's a terrible idea to make a prequel to a horror franchise about someone who doesn't even want to survive, or like to make a movie about a guy looking for his pig, or to make another Robin Hood movie, much less like not an action movie, but like a thoughtful, like adult drama version of Robin Hood. But like, it's like I like those things that like sound like a terrible idea, but I know on some deep soul level they appeal to me, and so I think like that was like the initial thing to leap over, and then like just in writing it and like finding something really kind of like slow and thoughtful and emotional, like really spoke to me, and being like screw it, like this is gonna be the version of Robin that I feel. And like I don't care if people are like, I wish he shot a few more arrows, or like this or that. It's like, no, like this is a character that makes sense to me and means something so like deep to me, that I just like accepting that for what it is, and not trying to like turn it into some other version of Robin that might be more palatable to like general audiences or something. It's like, no, I need to do something that feels human and true to me, and like and that's all I can do.
Well, I think it definitely did that. It stands alone and stands out as something that was, uniquely made, and I think, in my humble opinion, a worthy addition to the Robin Hood mythology. So thank you for making it.
Thank you so much.
And it looks like that's going to be the end of the time that we have here. But thank you so much, Michael, for coming on the show today. We really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about your new film.
Thank you for having me. This was great.